Okay, ready to go.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 18th Cardiff-Japanese online lecture series. Thank you very much for joining us today. Before we begin, I'd like to express our sincere thanks to the Japan Foundation London, who have generously supported this online lecture series. We are extremely grateful for their continued support, which makes events like this possible. My name is Mayuko Inagawa, and I am delighted to open today's webinar on behalf of the Japanese department in the School of Modern Languages at Cardiff University. Just a few brief housekeeping notes before we begin. The webinar is being recorded. All microphones are muted. Please type any questions you have into the Q&A box during the lecture. You can also upvote questions, and we will review them during the Q&A session at the end. We kindly ask that you do not use the raise hand function during the lecture. The lecture will run until around 1:45, followed by a short Q&A session, and we will close at 1 o'clock. Today's lecture is part of the Cardiff Japanese Online Lecture Series, exploring sociocultural aspects of Japanese language learning. It is my great pleasure to welcome Dr. Michelle Kuhn, who will be presenting a lecture entitled Reading Fashion, 17th Century Kimono Designs and Classical Japanese Literature. Dr. Michelle Kuhn received her PhD from Nagoya University Graduate School of Letters in 2018. Her research focuses on Heian and Edo period Japanese literary text, as well as their critical and cultural reception. Her work has explored early modern kimono designs inspired by the Tale of Genji and other classical literary texts, alongside the pre-modern dyeing techniques described in early modern kimono pattern books. We are delighted to have her with us today and very much look forward to her talk. Dr. Kim, thank you very much for joining us today. Over to you.
Oh, thank you very much for that lovely introduction. And the slide, the two kimono that you added to my intro slide, one of them is actually, it was part of the Nomura Shojiro collection that is currently in the Rekihaku in Tokyo, and it is part of my current research project. So truly a wonderful guzen. Okay. So let me share my slides and I will, oh, this button, yes. Okay, so I think everyone can see the slides, right? Okay. So today I will be talking about literacy, art, and fashion in the 17th century. And first, I'll be discussing words hidden in images, what that is, and the intersection between literature and fashion. And then I'll be discussing, in particular, a single kimono pattern book printed in 1687 called the Genji hinagata. And within that, I'll be discussing two patterns, one about Fujitsubo and one about the Nijō consort. So the pictorial depictions of classical poetry and classical Japanese literature have existed for well over 1,000 years. In the diary of Lady Murasaki, quoted here, Murasaki notes that Lady Oshikibu wore a beautiful train and jacket, both embroidered with the Komatsubara scene at Mount Oshio. So this is a beautiful, this is a beautiful ensemble, but it is also a skillful allusion to an appropriate poem, which savvy viewers would realize. And this is how literature, fashion, and image should operate ideally. the person wearing the garment would know what the illusion is, the person viewing the garment would know what the illusion is, and ideally, the literary illusion should be appropriate for the occasion. So we don't have any extant textiles from the Heian period. Unfortunately, Kyoto was burned several times. So what we do have to give us an idea of how words and poems could be embedded in images is from lacquer work. And here, this lacquer accessory box, it has the words from a poem of Po Chui hidden inside the design. And uh, one moment. I want to know how to make what do you call it? Can I make, where's that laser pointer function? Uh, ooh, laser pointer, laser pointer. There we go. Pointer option. Okay. So right here, this dark part of the trunk is actually a Chinese character, and this here as well, and this here. So you can see these characters are not only hidden inside the image, but they're also distorted so that they meld with the trunk of the tree or with the rock, etc. So then moving forward in time, if that was how image and literature appears in garments 1,000 years ago, what about 400 years ago when we get into the Edo period? At that time, the garment that all women wore was called a kosode. It is basically the same construction as the modern kimono. And it came actually from Heian fashion in the 8th to 11th century in the garment called the hitoe, which was an unlined garment worn next to the skin, basically as an undergarment. And it was usually white or a single solid color. It had a V neckline, like the modern kimono, and it had large open cuff sleeves or hirosode. So then we move forward into the turn of the 17th century in the Keicho period. This is the period when Tokugawa Ieyasu is finalizing his unification of Japan and just the beginning of his reign as shogun. In this time period, women are no longer wearing many, many layers. They're down to maybe 3 or 4. The garment that previously had been basically an undergarment is now the outer garment. And it is multicolored, it has patterns, it has embroidery. It's the same basic shape, the V neckline, left over right. And then the sleeves. The sleeves have changed only in the fact that now there's only a small wrist-sized cuff where the sleeves used to be open the entire way. Now there is a cuff, just a wrist-sized opening. So now we have at the same time period, in this Keicho period, there is the beginning of printing. There's the first mass-produced and commercial printing occurring in Japan. And the first type of print is called the sagabon. They are movable type, and the sagabon actually were a series that includes many different books. There was the Genji, there was also the Tales of Issei, no libretto were also published, and this is the first printing of the Tale of Genji. Keeping in mind that up until the early Edo period, unless you had a friend who owned the Tale of Genji, you could not go to find the Tale of Genji. you had to ask a friend to borrow it, and or a teacher or a cousin or whatever. And then after borrowing it, if you wanted to keep it, you needed to write it yourself. You needed to copy it yourself. So this movable type, oops, why is it happening? My apologies, it's going without me. This movable type was the first time that people could walk into a shop and they could purchase Genji without anyone's permission. The first illustrated version of the Tale of Genji came out in 1650, and it was reprinted only 4 years later, and it really set off a boom of Tale of Genji publications. At the same time, in the early 1650s and 1660s, we have the first kimono design books being printed. Now, after movable type, uh, woodblock print came into fashion, and movable type is not really very good for classical Japanese writing because classical Japanese is a calligraphic font and you do not have spaces in between characters. Movable type is actually not really very well suited for cursive hentai gana or kuzushiji. But woodblock print, taking one large block and carving out the entire image in one block, is actually very economical. And it does not matter when you're carving whether you are carving an image or a character, a word. So what we have here is an image from the 1667 reprint of the first kimono pattern book that was ever printed, called On Hinagata. Inside this, there are many patterns based on no plays. There are 4 patterns based on the Tale of Genji. However, they do not depict a particular scene so much as the atmosphere of the Heian period. And in the pattern that I've shown here, you can see that there are books, and there are 2 characters that say komachi. And this is a reference to Solshi Komachi, which is a no play. So you can see already from the very first kimono pattern books, there is first a reference to classical literature, Heian period literature via komachi, popular culture through the no plays that were still being performed in the Edo period, and a use of image and text within kimono design. So this here is another example of an early kimono design book. It's actually within the Jokyo Hidensho, which is it's a textbook for young women. And this one suggests that for the design on the left would be appropriate for New Year's. The base color should be teal blue, and it should be a pine and bamboo pattern. So here you see that there's not very much text in these early kimono pattern books. There's really only the color and maybe the name of the design. That all changes with the Genji Hinagata. The Genji Hinagata was published in 1687, the 4th year of the Jokyo era. The artist, well, we don't actually know who this person is, but according to the book, the artist was Katoshi Yoshisada. This is not a person that we have any more biographical details about. The publisher was Bundaya Jirobe, and this publisher was very popular publisher. They published a lot of books related to education. So for instance, those women's textbooks, young girls' textbooks, they also published those, as well as popular fiction and many other things. Inside this book, there's a total of 139 patterns, but 27 of them are a little different. The 100 and let's see here, 12 that are normal patterns are just a pattern and a word or two saying what color it should be and maybe what dyeing techniques should be used. But the patterns inspired by women are inspired by female characters from the tale of Genji and other fictional and historical women. So this is what the cover of the Genji hinagata looks like. This is in the National Diet Library. And when you open to the first pattern that is a pattern based on a woman, this is what you see. This is the Kiritsubo consort, Genji's mother. And you'll see there we go. On the left hand page, you have a text and an image of the woman. And then on the right hand page, you'll see we have the pattern. And then to the right and left, kind of on the here, this right here is the color that the base color should be, the name of the pattern, and then this is the name of the woman, Fujitsubo. And then up here, we have the instructions for how it should be done. So who is Fujitsubo? Fujitsubo is the Kiritsubo Emperor's new wife. Genji was born to the Kiritsubo consort who died when he was 3 years old. Kiritsubo remarried brought in a new woman to the harem called Fujitsubo, who apparently looks very similar to Genji's mother. And the Kiritsubo Emperor has asked Fujitsubo to be kind to Genji, to be a second mother to him, and unfortunately, Genji falls in love with her, and they do have an affair. Fujitsubo becomes pregnant, and she bears a son to Genji, but the world does not know and believes this son to be Genji's younger brother, the future Emperor Reizei. So, this is the Fujitsubo pattern. It is a trellis and wisteria pattern. The wisteria, Fujitsubo is the name Wisteria Court. It is the place where Fujitsubo lives inside the palace. Each section of the palace is named after a different flower. For instance, Kiritsubo is Kiri or Paulonia. Fujitsubo is Fuji or wisteria. So in this pattern, you see wisteria, and that makes sense because she is the lady of the Fujitsubo. Then this right here, this is a large snow roundel. And these characters here, this one here is uguisu, or bush warbler, and this one here is yado, or cottage. And then we also have scattered cherry blossoms, sakura blossoms here at the top and bottom of the design. According to the, let's see here. Next to the title of the pattern over here, I don't know if you can see this, the hinagata instructs that half the base color should be crimson. In other words, this section here outside this wisteria part, this here should be crimson. And then it gives further instructions. The characters should be done in kanoko shibori, which I will explain in just a little bit. The sakura blossoms should be in kanoko, with some areas in shiraboshi, which is another type of kanoko. The wisteria inside the snow roundel should be a combination of mauve, white, sky blue, and purple. And this is actually how wisteria in real life are different shades of white, purple, mauve, and even blue. The snow roundel itself should be turquoise, and the trellis should be a variety of the previously mentioned colors. So if you can imagine, this section here should be a bright crimson. Oops, I'm sorry. There's all of the text. This area here should be a bright crimson, and this here should be many different colors of purple and white and sky blue, mauve, and even turquoise. So there are no extant kimono that are exact replicas of the Genji hinagata designs, but we can look at some extant kimono that look similar to how this kimono might have been intended to look. So for instance, here we have the blue chirimen silk furisode has wisteria hanging from a trellis above running water. So this design here is the wisteria and a trellis. So this is similar. The blue color is turquoise, and it is the same color that was suggested for the wisteria on the Fujitsubo pattern. This here is an example of kanoko shibori. This entire design here, all of these white dots are tiny tie-dye dots. Each one of these dots has been tied individually, and the garment was then dip dyed into, to make crimson, they use safflower, and it is one of the most expensive dyes in the world. And then after it was dyed, these sections here, these are embroidery. These are different colors. So the dye on this kimono is actually only one color. The other colors are embroidered on. So let's go back to the Fujitsubo. Here, on the left-hand facing page, Fujitsubo is depicted standing next to Genji wearing the pattern that is depicted on the right-hand side. You can see here, here's the Fuji, the wisteria on her sleeve. There's the little cherry blossoms, and you can even see one character right here on her sleeve. So the text here above the picture says, querying where is the bush warbler's cottage, the plum-scented sleeves reflected in the crimson-dyed sleeves, becoming lost on love's path, uncertainty in the way that the Fujitsubo leans coquettishly in this painted color. After the rains have soaked these sleeves, the shining sun princess she is called, how lovely she must have been. Now, this passage contains many allusions to both the Tale of Genji and to other texts. But the big question for us is, what is this bush warbler cottage thing about? The bush warbler's cottage does not appear in the Tale of Genji. This is not a quote to the Tale of Genji. So what is it a quote to? What are the plum-scented sleeves? Why is Fujitsubo leaning coquettishly? And what are these rain-soaked sleeves? So I don't quite have time to go into all of these, but I would like to talk about the bush warbler. So the goal of each passage in the Genji Hinagata is to first explain why the pattern is linked to the woman, give some background information on who the woman is, and give a sales point as for why the reader should order this kimono. The clue for how the pattern is linked to Fujitsubo is in the first line. The phrase, "Where is the bush warbler's cottage?" quotes a poem composed by Kino Tsurayuki's daughter. The story behind this poem is told in both the Jikinsho and in the Okagami. So the Jikinsho that I have quoted here, this is the whole poem. I tremble and obey the imperial command, yet how shall I ask if the warbler asks, where is my home? But what does this have to do with Fujitsubo? The interesting thing is that this story in the Okagami has a larger backstory. And the Okagami says that I remember one interesting and affecting incident from Emperor Murakami's reign. This is the Tenryaku period. A plum tree from in front of the Seiryoden had died, and His Majesty was looking for a replacement. He entrusted the matter to a certain gentleman who was serving as chamberlain at the time. Young people cannot recognize a good tree, the chamberlain said to me. You find one for us. After walking all over the capital without success, I located a beautiful specimen covered with deep red blossoms at a house in the western sector. As I was digging it up, the owner sent someone out with a message. Attach this to it before you carry it away. I suppose there was some reason behind it, so I took the paper along. The emperor saw it and said, "What's that?" It was a poem in a woman's hand. The poem from the previous slide, this poem here. Somewhat taken aback, the emperor had inquiries made about the owner, and she turned out to be Tsurayuki's daughter. So here we have a historical event, allegedly, that occurred during the Tenryaku period. The Emperor Murakami is the main character of this. And at this time, in Murakami's court, there was a woman living in Fujitsubo. It was Fujiwara no Anshi. Now, Fujiwara no Anshi was one of the most how do I say this? She was the most successful empress. Her son became the future Emperor Reize, and she presided over the court for more than 20 years. So here is the historical side, the Okagami side. But if you think about Genji, which allegedly the Kiritsubo Emperor is actually based on Emperor Murakami, and we have another Fujitsubo, and their son is called Reize. So the keywords bush warbler and cottage written in the pattern are intended to cause the reader, or the person looking at the kimono, to remember an event that took place during the historical period that Genji is supposedly based on. Thinking of Tsurayuki's daughter and her poem brings to mind the historical Murakami, Anshi, and Reize. Inspiration for the fictional Kiritsubo, Fujitsubo, and Reize. The encyclopedic knowledge that is required to understand the meaning of this single pattern proves without a doubt the erudition of both the author and the education and cultural understanding required for readers to appreciate the meaning of the patterns in the Genji hinagata. So just in the interest of time, I'm going to skip over these small things. Basically, the goals in the Fujitsubo textual passage are to describe her appearance and to quote Tsurayuki's poem and to give a clue to the meaning of the pattern. So then I would like to turn to the second pattern. This is based on the Nijo consort. The Nijo consort, or Fujiwara no Takaiko, was consort to Emperor Seiwa and bore the future Emperor Yose. However, during Emperor Uda's reign, near the end of her life, she was accused of having an affair with a priest and her rank was stripped. However, this was reinstated after her death. So even historically, she was kind of a scandal-ridden personage. Moreover, according to the tales of Issei, Nijo had an affair with the hero of the tale, Ariwara no Narihira. So the Nijo pattern is, in comparison to the previous Fujitsubo pattern, is actually quite simple. There's only two things. There's many chrysanthemums with leaves, and then small drops of dew, perhaps on the leaves, and then one very, very large character here. This is tsuyu, or dew. The instructions say that the characters should be crimson, done in kanoko. The chrysanthemum petals should be done here and there in turquoise kanoko. The leaves of the flowers should be patternless turquoise, and you should leave white and turquoise areas free for hand-drawn ink paintings. So a couple of extant patterns. This here is a chrysanthemums in Kanoko Shibori Kosode. Every single one of these small white dots is Kanoko Shibori, and then the green parts, I believe, are all embroidery. Then we have another large design, katabira. A katabira is a summer garment. It's the same shape as a kosore, but it is produced using plant fibers, including linen, hemp, and remie. And this huge chrysanthemum here, also done in kanoko shibori, and has little palm leaves. So why? Why is the Nijo consort chrysanthemums and dew? That is our question. The text says, "What is that white jewel dripping in dew on the bank of the Akutagawa River that never dawns? Gobbled up in one bite by a demon, sleeves of parting, raining tears." Oops. Rumbling of thunder, the thief of love, will they be cursed? Is this the moon from spring of yesteryear? Queried the old man of the past. This colorful pattern in a new and chic style, this will become the pattern for love. Are those pearls, you asked? Or what might they be? I wish I had replied, drops of dew, and vanished as quickly as they do. So the puzzle presented by the Fujitsubo pattern was understanding the relationship between the words bush warbler and cottage, written in the Kosore pattern, and the tale of Genji character Fujitsubo. But the word dew in Niji's pattern is clearly related to episode 6 of the Tales of Ise, where Ariwara no Narihira steals her out of her family's house and carries her, oops, there we go, carries her across the Akutagawa River, depicted here, and she's looking back behind them here to a small plant. There we go. This small plant here that probably has dew on it. Okay, there we go. So, why? Why chrysanthemums? Chrysanthemums and dew are a very, very famous motif that ostensibly comes from a Kokin Wakashu poem by Sosei, quoted here on the left. On the mountain road, dew from the chrysanthemums drenched my hem in the instant it took to dry. Can 1,000 years have flashed by? This poem is from the Kokinshu. It's extremely famous, and almost all chrysanthemum and dew motifs are actually referring to this poem. However, I believe that this chrysanthemum and dew pattern is actually referring to a different poem by Fujiwara no Shunzei in the Shin Kokin Wakashu. In the instant that an immortal sleeve brushed white dew from the fragrant chrysanthemum, 1,000 years pass. Obviously, the how do you say, the content of the poems is very similar, but the important thing is the context in which this poem by Shunzei was made. Shunzei composed this poem to be put on a folding screen that was part of the trousseau for Fujiwara no Ninshi when she married Emperor Go-Ichijo. And so this poem was specifically for a wedding. And we know that this motif of chrysanthemums and dew was used by the Tokugawa shoguns when their daughters were marrying and creating their trousseaus. The first example of a trousseau for a Tokugawa princess is first shogun Tokugawa Ietada's daughter Masako, also known as Tofukumon-in. She was sent from Edo to Kyoto to marry Emperor Go-Mizunoo in 1620. The only piece of her trousseau that has survived is this very small lacquer incense box, bearing just a dewdrop and chrysanthemum pattern. Now, of course, there are no words in this pattern, so I cannot prove that this is based on the Shunzei poem or based on the Sosei poem. But just 13 years later, a daughter of the third Tokugawa shogun Iemitsu married Maeda Mitsutaka, and in Kamehime's trousseau, all of her trousseau is based on the poem by Shunzei. And the way that we know this is the words to the poem are hidden inside the design. So here you see sen, nin, immortal is here. And then you have a kosode that is the sleeves here. And then there are other words hidden inside, and you have the chrysanthemum and dew pattern. And you'll note that this chrysanthemum and dew pattern is very, very similar to the way that it is here in Masako or Tofukimon In's trousseau. So if we know that the Shogun daughters and their trousseaux were wildly famous, one of the most famous folding screens from the Edo period depicts Masako going to Kyoto to marry Emperor Go-Mizuno in 1620. The most common people probably would have known what her trousseau, maybe they didn't know exactly what it looked like, but the motif of her trousseau and the motif of other princesses' trousseau were probably known by at least the elite. And so what we have here is the possibility that Nijo's pattern is actually referring to those trousseau by putting together chrysanthemums and dew. They're possibly referring to Shunzei pattern and then also to the popular depiction of Shunzei's poem inside the various trousseau. So just to sum up in the few minutes I have left. So understanding the meaning of the words bush warbler and cottage in Fujitsubo's pattern and how it relates to Fujitsubo's appearance in the Tale of Genji requires knowledge of related classical literary texts. On the other hand, the word do in Nijo's pattern is a key word in episode 6 of the Tales of Issei and Nijo's portrayal in the Tales of Issei. But the link between chrysanthemums and dew requires the reader to know a 12th century poem and perhaps even details of the Tokugawa shogun's bride's trousseaux. The Genji Hinagata, this book here, offers a new way to look at gender, women's education, literary reception, and art in the Edo period. We can see from the Genji Hinagata that women's education was much broader and more in-depth than previously thought. Though the Hinagata, this book, has been ignored by literary scholars due to its proximity to women's fashion and supposed lack of relation to the original literary texts, it is a valuable artifact showing how Edo period women used their education. The Tale of Genji and the Tales of Issei were not simply dry educational tools or manuals for creating poetry. These tales were also engaging. Women were drawn to the tales and wanted to show their affection for favorite characters by literally wearing their interests and their education on their sleeves. These kosode patterns also show the high level of interpersonal connection inspired by the tale. Viewers and owners of these kosode would interact based on whether the viewer could accurately interpret the pattern's illusion. Like-minded souls could bond over these kosode. So just to sum up, these patterns, I have not found any exact replicas of these patterns. So they are, I'm sorry, my cat is dropping things in the background. It's not entirely certain if these patterns were made into kimono in the Edo period, but all of the motifs and the dyeing methods depicted in this book were used in the time period, and the style of pattern matches the patterns of extant kimono. So though these patterns may not have been made in particular, there was every possibility that they could have been made. So I'm ending just a little bit early, but I'd like to open it up for questions. Hello.
Thank you so much. I'm Miho. I'm from Cardiff-University Japanese program,
Oh.
and thank you so much for interesting talk. So, could you please, if you have any questions, so please feel free to type your questions in chat box, please.
I think I see. Maybe is there something already?
Oh,
Oh, yes,
great.
yes. So yes, you can view the Genji Hinagata pattern book on the National Diet Library. And if you wait just one moment, I can put the link in the chat. Okay, I think if you click on that link, you'll be able to see the National Diet Library, and you should be able to see all 3 volumes of the Hinagata.
Sorry, I cannot see the link. So.
Can you see? Oh, maybe. Can you see it now?
Not to worry, Michelle. If you send that to me, I'll make sure everybody gets that after.
Okay.
That's fine, no problem.
Thank you, Jill. Is anyone have another question?
I can share my screen again, and you can.
I think Michelle has put it in the Q&A. Actually, the link there.
Yes, like yes.
Not in the chat,
Oh.
so you might be able to see it, everybody in the Q&A. No, it's fine.
Right. Okay. I'm sorry. It was in the Q&A, but I can put it here too. There we go. Okay. Terribly sorry.
That's fine. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any other questions?
Well, I suppose I have a question for the audience.
There is one there if you.
Oh, okay.
It says, that was really interesting, a great example of the sophisticated ways women wrap themselves in their education. How often do you think people do this today?
Well, do you own a favorite t-shirt that you bought at a rock concert? Everyone does it today. If you have a favorite Disney t-shirt or a favorite sweatshirt that you got at a rock concert, that is exactly the same idea. So women and men, men perhaps not have used these exact patterns, but they might have had the pattern on the inside of a jacket because sumptuary laws of the day did not allow men to be wearing bright colors and patterns on the outside of their clothes, but the lining, they could do whatever interesting pattern and color they would like. So they may have a pattern like this on the inside of their jacket. Men also carried small medicine cases called inro, and those were oftentimes decorated with scenes from the Tale of Genji or other no plays, etc. And in my own personal life, I have today at my university, we had a tea ceremony experience for our international students. And so I wore kimono, and the kimono that I own has a pair of heian, a man and a woman. And then my obi actually has 2 scenes from the Tale of Genji on it, which is very common. Many obi and kimono in Japan have the Tale of Genji on them. Let's see here. Was there Is there something else in the chat? Oh, okay. Oh, thank you so much for your comments. I appreciate. Okay, everyone have a good day and have good class. Let's hear. Are there specific colors linked to the tail of Genji used in kimono designs? Not really. Um, the colors that are depicted or specified in, because remember the Genji Hinagata is a black and white book. It doesn't have any color in it because at that time period in 1687 they had not actually developed color printing yet. That was another like 50 years down the road. But the colors that are mentioned in the book, so turquoise, sky blue, orange, crimson, very, very bright colors. Extant kimono, even if they are using the same colors as in this text, they are a lot less vibrant now after 400 years has passed, 300 years has passed. But the early Edo period really liked bright, vivid colors, crimson, purple, blue, things that we think of commonly, kind of like the more dark blue, browns, the kind of chic look that is very mid to late Edo period. The early Edo period was all about flamboyant fashion.
We have another one there, Michelle. Are there still
Yes.
modern artisans who still practice or at least recreate these historical patterns?
Yes, yes. So there was, I'm thinking of two projects. There was one project that was attempting to recreate the dyeing method called chaya zome. And chaya means tea house, and so it's tea house dyeing, but it has nothing to do with tea. It's not the color of tea, it's not using tea, it's just a name that has nothing to do with the dyeing method. The way that it is done is you would take a small pipette, like when you're doing like cake icing designs, and you would use it's let's see here, indigo dye, and you would use the small pipette to draw designs onto the cloth, and then that design it's paste resist, and so you end up with these very, very, very thin lines. And this was popular with the samurai class, and it was only done on uh, linen and ramier. It can't really be done on cotton, and it can't really be done on silk. And so the whole like trying to figure out, well, what is chayazome? How is it done? Is it dip dyed or is it done with this pipette? That was an entire project. And there's a book, and I highly recommend it. Let's see here. There was another project that recreated for Edo period extant kimono, and that was a huge project. Each of these kimono took months, many, many months to make because the dyeing process to get the colors and to get the tie-dye perfectly, you have to dip dye it many times. You dip dye it and then you dry it and then you dip dye it again and dry it. And so it's an extremely lengthy process. Let's see here. What other
Yeah, we do
questions have
have
come?
another one. Were references to different Genji characters meant to carry specific implications about the wearer's personality, intentions, etc., or do we not know?
Okay, wait. I'm sorry, because there's there's questions in the chat and there's also questions in the Q&A, so I'm trying to keep up with everything. Okay. Well, let's see here. Wait. Oh, okay. I'm looking at it. Yes. I think basically everybody has a favorite character, right? The Tale of Genji has I think, almost 200 named characters, and there's at least 50 major female characters. And I admit I have a favorite character. I'm sure most people reading The Tale of Genji have at least one character that they think, oh, I really like this one. I don't like those other characters, but I like this one. And so, of course, if you're going to the trouble of having a kimono made, you would maybe want it to be about a character that you like. But in a previous article, I did discuss how a lot of the characters are very tragic. For instance, Yugao is killed in demonic possession, and yet the Yugao pattern in the Genji Hinagata is suggested as a wedding kimono. So there's a little bit of a disconnect between the perhaps unpleasant future of the character as opposed to the the tragic love, the passion and everything that Genji and Yugao felt for each other. It's kind of picking and choosing which part of the story do we care about. So, okay. Modern artisans. Let's see here. Oh, okay. So the chat questions. Here we go. Tea ceremony, open to visitors from overseas? Yes, you can go to tea ceremony at many places in Japan. You can go to tea ceremony at temples or at gardens or all sorts of different places. We just had a tea ceremony experience for our international students on campus today. It just happened to be today. Would love to see a kimono pattern as talked about today actually being worn. So the kind of interesting thing about these patterns is that kimono pattern fashion has changed over the past 400 years. And what was popular 400 years ago is not really popular now. One big reason why things have changed is because of the obi. The obi is the sash, or kind of like a corset that goes around the middle. And if you have this huge, piece of fabric in the middle that is covering the kimono, then you're not going to put anything there. In the 1600s, the obi was actually only about a couple inches wide. It was very thin. So patterns were full body patterns. There was no, of course, you didn't want to leave anything empty in the middle. You needed the full body. But as obi got bigger and bigger and bigger, you don't want to waste embroidery and dyeing and all of these expensive things. So you just want to have the pattern in your sleeve and at the hem of the kimono. Is kimono a modern everyday item of clothing or purely saved for ceremonial events? Yes and no. So I wear kimono pretty frequently, at least once a month. I wear it to, like today, to tea ceremony, or I will go and have lunch with my friend. I've worn kimono to a rock band concert, a visual kei concert. I have worn every year. We have a lovely yukata night cruise where we go out drinking on a boat in yukata. So you can wear it as an everyday item of clothing, but it does take a little bit of learning of how to put it on properly. There are specific designs of kimono based on event. So there are levels of formality. There are very, very formal kimono, and there are very casual kimono, like yukata. The most formal of kimono are only used for weddings and for the coming of age ceremony for 20-year-old young women. Let's see here. Do you know if the Tale of Genji was more popular with the newly formed merchant class or the samurai class? So basically what you have is the Tale of Genji was always popular with the samurai class because they wanted to be educated. They wanted to be like the aristocrats, excuse me. They wanted to be like the aristocrats. And merchants, they're the same. They want to be like the aristocrats. They want to be like the samurai class. And so now, once they have the option, once they have the ability to read Genji without the interference of the samurai class and the aristocrat class, they can go to a bookstore and buy Genji, or even they could rent it because there were book rental shops. So they could rent Genji. Let's see here. I wonder, because I always associate more fashionable and bold choices which influence pop culture. Genji is both. It's both high culture and low culture. There was pornography based on the tale of Genji. The tale of Genji is everything and anything. It is from the no plays to the most formal of kimonos down to the most cheap penny novels. Genji is everywhere. Oh, okay. Any other questions? I know we are running in on the last 2 minutes of my time. So any last minute questions? Did I miss anything?
I don't think so. I've just had a quick look. Oh, I think it's all done.
Okay. Well, thank you all for the opportunity to let me talk about my research. I really appreciate, I enjoy. And I hope you all enjoyed as well.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Miho, did you want to mention about the what's coming up? And okay.
Yes, thank you, Joss. So, first of all, thank you so much for interesting talk, Michelle. And I also really enjoyed your talk because I just remember that I learned Genji, tale of Genji for university entrance exam and so on. But anyway, so I would like to talk, I would like to inform you, all of you about the next event. So we are planning to have another webinar on 8th of February, but the time is not finalized. So the topic is going to the topic will be about the probably some of you know that Shusaku Endo's silence and how it is accepted in the museum and so on. So the topic is going to be like that. So please, if you are interested, so please join us again on 18th of February. And I would also like to introduce you the our Cardiff-Japanese online lecture series on YouTube. So if you would like to listen to Michelle's talk again, so please check this channel as well. So we are going to upload this video to this YouTube channel as well. And also, finally, I would like ask you to complete the survey. It would be really helpful for us to know that how you feel about our webinar series. Thank you so much, and I will post the link into the chat box now. So thank you so much, and thank you for everyone for attending this webinar. So and thank you again, Michelle. That's for interesting talk, really interesting talk. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I appreciate.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Good night. Bye.
Bye.